If you had to face flesh-eating French vampires, what would you do? You'll need to confront your mother's bloodthirsty killer, terrifying creatures of the night, and hordes of undead in order to stop an Egyptian vampire god. I'm going to break down the mistakes made, what you should do, and how to beat the vampire messiah in Castlevania Nocturne. Get a whole bottle of premium fragrance every month for 97% less money than what you'd pay for in the store. Now hear me out. Scentbird is a fragrance subscription that lets you choose a new fragrance each month, and it is designed to last you the whole month for only the price of one large premium topping pizza, and I love pizza. Affordable subscription plans means that you get 600 choices of the best to choose from. I'm talking Gucci, Prada, Versace, to the most indie of indie brands like Skylar, Heretic, and Confession of Rebel, and more. These will let you smell as good as us anime boys. I know, hard to believe. Right now I'm rolling with Cross River Gorilla by Sanctuary because I like to feel as fruity as a jungle after a rainstorm. And I also like to have a dash of calculated complexity with this one because it's gonna make you feel upbeat in hot weather and smelling of mixed green notes. And also on occasion I like to use Handsome Devil by Groom and Lounge for when it's time to look dangerous and sophisticated. The spice and citrus leads you to redwood and coffee scents that will have you smelling warm and cheeky for when you want to have a night full of fun. A 30-day supply will allow you to try a fragrance out fully before committing to a full-size bottle, which can cost anywhere between $150 to $300, oh my gosh. Or you can just rotate fragrance with Scentbird forever, we won't tell. Thanks again to Scentbird for sponsoring this video. Use my coupon code HTBA55 for 55% off at Scentbird. That's less than $8 for your first month. Available in the US and Canada. Check out the links below, and thank you Scentbird for sponsoring this video. Now, back to the show. This kid will be forced to fight a vampire that no one has ever seen before. Richter Belmont here is the world's greatest vampire hunter, part of generations of famous vampire hunters. He helps his friend, who is also a sorcerer, Maria, hold a secret meeting in the woods. The country is tired of rich French people running things and have decided to do something about it. They talk about French Revolution things just as piercing screams and hordes of bloodthirsty killers blast through for a surprise attack. Richter acts on his training and takes out his famous Morningstar whip and easily cuts this monster's head off. Maria tells everyone to stay close and summons magical animals to attack, while Richter takes out two incoming stragglers. She directs her powers to take out another baddie, while Richter deals the final blow with some throwing knives. A surviving vampire tells him killing them is pointless. Before the next moon rises, something known as the vampire messiah, the devourer of light, will soon rise and block out the sun, making no sense. Richter tells him to shut up and takes him out without a care in the world. Heading back into town, they try to figure out what the vampire meant. Maria says that this news could explain why vampire attacks in this town have increased, because too many have started coming to this small village and it makes no sense. Looking over, she thinks they are all gathering at the only private mansion in the area, owned by a noble. And since vampires are snobs deep down, Richter wonders if they should inform the church that hired them as bodyguards about this, and Maria hesitates, saying the church doesn't care about anything but themselves, but Richter convinces them to ask them for a temporary alliance. While they get to the bottom of this vampire mystery, reaching the church, they meet a man named Mizrak, and he lets them talk to his boss, the man that annoys Maria the most, the head priest. Richter tells him that there's never been this many vampire attacks before, and one of them just said something about a next generation vampire arriving soon, the vampire messiah. Maria thinks they're meeting at this famous noble's mansion nearby, the Marquis. The head priest tells them that the noble in this town has done so much for this area and they should be respected, but Maria thinks the rich are all evil deep down anyways. Head priest guy rolls his eyes but agrees to help them out and lets Richter and Maria take a closer look at the noble's house, while he tells them that he'll send his town spies around the area to find out more information about all of this. These two then head back home for dinner with Maria's mother and basically the woman who looked after Richter since he was young, named Tara. Meanwhile, at the rich noble's house nearby, this noble vampire complains to the other vampire friends of his that hiding out in this town is boring, and he misses living in the city of Versailles before the revolution began, and that's when they receive another dead poor person for them to feed on, and they plan to use all of the corpses they have left over. Back at Maria's house, the main gang prepares for dinner, just as they hear a loud, horrifying roar outside. Rushing out, they stumble upon a group of monsters waiting for them, ones they've never seen before. Get ready for a showdown with an unknown enemy. Okay, while this may seem like a surprised situation, Richter and crew did everything wrong. Let me explain. It's 1792 in France. France, which means some serious shit is going on, which could increase the probability that more and more vampires are escaping to the countryside. Right now, the country is turning its love for royalty and order that they've had for centuries up on its head. And this means that the country is now starting to hate on anyone with too much power, including kings, nobles, and even priests. And while there is a lot of reasons why vampires have always associated with nobles, vampires in general are representation of unrepressed desires and hedonistic lifestyles. Their love for power and control over their food would likely mean that they would target the humans who could provide them with direct access to power over their food source. Unlike today, where the diversification of power is encouraged. Back then, under the feudal system developed in Europe, the kings and queens would hand off parts of land to nobles to own and look after, basically to keep watch over what they couldn't. And poor people could rent from the land and pay the noble a fee, basically. And because of a vampire's need for a steady source of food, targeting the nobility in general makes sense, since they can get away with killing humans to secretly feed the vampires. This, plus the revolution happening in the main cities in France, means that it was obvious from the start that vampires would also be hiding out where the nobles would be, like in that noble's mansion that they just saw. Richter here should have been way more alert from the start. Considering the location they're in, this is a small commune located southwest of Paris, with around 5.3 thousand inhabitants. Probably way less though back then. Aside from a few nice churches, there's nothing important or notable around here. There's no reason for vampires to be here other than the fact that it housed a small amount of nobles in the area, likely hiding out from the violence in the bigger cities. Interesting, isn't it? In general, the risk of living in the main city areas, while always more dangerous in terms of intentional crime, living in the countryside in reality has always been more dangerous. That while deaths in the countryside were lower than city living, they on average have lower access to trauma care and physicians trained in emergency room medicine. Any serious injuries taken in the countryside are far more likely to be lethal. And this goes for where Richter and his team are right now. Living out away from the city only makes sense on the surface, but it makes them extremely vulnerable to surprise attacks. If they get injured, they have no help coming their way. They're surrounded by dark forests on all sides. Living closer to the city town would have at least given them more opportunities to use the innocent public as shields of meat. They should have expected this, and now they're caught off guard. Little time to react. Richter takes out his whip and starts flailing while these two girls combine their magic to power blast these bastards. Miscalculating. Richter is about to get overwhelmed when they get saved by two strangers, as the help sends the surviving monsters away in retreat. Richter notices that this woman is a sorcerer, but a different kind. The strangers tell them that they were just attacked by things known as night creatures, human corpses brought back to life, but with demon souls inside. She says that nobody has made monsters like these for centuries, and only certain humans known as Forge Masters can make them. This means that a human somewhere nearby them made them. She introduces herself as a witch named Annette, and her human friend Edouard. They tell Richter they have come from overseas and are looking for someone named Belmont, because they have come to stop the vampire messiah. Richter tells him that hey, he's their guy, but finds out from them that this monster they're up against will be different than anything he's ever faced before. The next day, the gang gets to know each other, and Annette tells them that she is the only survivor left from her witch family of Boo-Hoo, and she was forced into servitude for years, if you know what I mean. At the end of her ropes, she one day accidentally turned on her powers, and that's how she helped her people break free. Met Edouard and a magical sorcerer that was with him. Richter informs them that he lost his powers the day he saw his mom get brutally murdered, and Annette finds it weird that her sorcerer friend didn't tell her this, and tells them that they would need all the help they can get, because this new enemy they're up against was born a monster before she was a vampire, and will even kill innocent boys and girls if that's what it takes to win. Revealing their enemy's name as Elizabeth Bathory, Tara's eyes then go wide as she hears this name and runs off crying. Richter goes after her and finds out that she knows who the vampire messiah is. Before Maria was born, she met her and her attack dog, Drolta, in Russia before she fled and turned her sister into a vampire. Tara warns them that she hangs her victims and drains them slowly of their blood, just enough to keep them alive for as long as possible, while they get tortured to death. But Annette and Richter says no worries like some naive kids, and think they should investigate the noble's mansion right now. Tara begs them to stay, because the sun is going down, but Annette says they are running out of time to save the world, and they know the risks. Richter assures Tara that they'll stay out of sight and just watch from a safe distance. And these fools just made their biggest mistake. They head over there, and they half-assed talk about their power stats and how they can combine their powers in case shit hits the fan. Annette says her family comes from African gods, and she has power over metal and rock. Richter tries to cope and shows off his whip just as they reach the stream of running water, a vampire's weakness. Annette creates a rock bridge for them to cross, and they sneak into the area to keep watch. She informs them if they follow the night creatures, they'll find the Forge Masters monsters, making them maybe. But that's when Annette sees the person who trapped her family as servants years ago, here in the mansion. This guy. Unable to hold back her emotions, she accidentally starts activating her powers right as the vampires, right on cue, spot them and begin charging at them. Okay, well, it seems like everything went wrong with this plan, because it did. Everything could have been prevented. Our current lineup sucks. They once again acted like dumb children, when in reality, the only one who had the excuse to act like this was Maria, because she's basically barely 10. If I was Richter, I would have first thought carefully about who I decided to bring on my team. For example, Annette, while not in charge, was clearly the one leading this mission, and that should have been addressed from beforehand. While she may be extremely powerful, at the end of the day, she's Richter's age, and without Richter's training experience. While she has a fighting spirit, Richter has no doubt spent his entire life training for one thing, meaning he no doubt would have been a better tactician from the start. Honestly though, Tara should have been the one leading this, so she also screwed the pooch too. But I could have predicted that Annette messed up this mission and got them spotted right from the get-go. Her backstory, while tragic, means it was obvious that she holds a grudge against the man that kept her in chains. The problem with grudges though is that the act itself has been linked to reinforcing a sense of identity within the person holding in all that anger. And the association of such identity means that the person holding on to the grudge means it becomes a part of them. And this means that Annette made this man a part of her identity and a key part of who she is. Her desire to kill him is now rooted so deep within her subconscious. This is the reason Annette struggled to keep her cool when she saw her target. And being so powerful, it'd be like as if Gamera got suddenly too emotional. Something so powerful should really have been better taken care of. And if Annette didn't realize she was an emotional ticking time bomb, then well, then either Richter or Tara should have spotted the signs and pulled her off the mission way in advance. Richter tells everyone to prepare for battle. Charging in, they clash with whips, magical birds, and witch magic, and they quickly realize they're getting overwhelmed. Richter orders everyone to retreat, knocking back dozens of monsters, giving his team a head start. Reaching the river, Annette tries to make a bridge but sees Edward get caught and die right in front of her eyes. Richter forces her to concentrate on her magic, allowing them to cross her half-made bridge and escape until the adrenaline wears off and the emotions hit hard. Meanwhile though, Edward's cold corpse gets collected by some demons and gets taken to a familiar place, the church that the head priest runs. Dragging the bodies down into the basement, they place Edward into this machine and use monster magic and cutting-edge tech to transform him into the very thing Richter's team fears most, a night creature. The next day, Annette mourns the loss over Edward. So sad, but Tara says that it was not her fault and that Edward knew the risks. She tells them that the man she saw last night killed her mother back when they were servants. She tried to kill him before, but he escaped. Elsewhere, Richter's mother's killer, known as Orlox, reaches their town and inspects the church, but gets caught by one of the church's knights, Mizrak. Curious, he tells Mizrak that he knows that this church is making night creatures for the vampires and wants to know why. Mizrak tells him that the French Revolution is making people pick sides, and the head priest thinks he can save the good old souls of France from the revolutionaries by teaming up with the vampires. Orlox calls him up and says being loyal to the vampire messiah will only get him and everyone here killed when she gets what she wants. Later that night, Maria introduces Annette to other revolutionaries in the town, but suddenly they hear innocent screams of people nearby, and they discover that the night creatures have come back. Richter tells them to split up as he takes on this one monster, while Annette saves innocent lives, oh goody, slicing through baddies, but then sees a monster in the distance with the exact same eyes as Edward. Paralyzed with fear, Annette quickly gets saved by this monster, brutally ripping it apart behind her. The other night creatures immediately spot this and quickly carry him away against his will, and all of them head back to the church. Annette desperately tells the group that that was Edward, and Maria confirms her suspicions and says that the church is working with vampires. The next day, Richter discusses with the group about what they just saw and what to do about the church. Tara says that the forge master making those monsters must be in the church and that the head priest must be the vampire's prisoner because he's a good guy. But Maria calls BS on that, and Annette tells them they must save Edward, but Richter says he's already dead because he's a monster, and she tells him to shut his face and wants to rush in to save him, saying it's made of stone and she can use that to crush all of them. But Richter stops her and warns her that they need a plan first, and they need to see if the head priest is actually a bad guy or a hostage. Tara then reveals that there is a secret underground tunnel leading into the church that almost no one knows about, and Richter wants to know why does she know about it, but she tells them that this time she's coming with them. Elsewhere, Orlox gets busy with Mizrak and finds out from him that the head priest is also the forge master for the vampires. He tells Mizrak that he knows that his boss will try to betray the vampire messiah and use the night creature's army he's building for her against her. Orlox warns him that his people are in a tough spot. If they don't continue doing what the messiah wants, they're dead. And if they try to take her down in the end, they could win or die. and Mizrak assures him that they're doing it for their religion and for the good people who still believe in religion, because this revolution has caused people to be more divided than ever, and because of this, he will fight for God no matter what. So he puts it back in his pants and heads back to church just in time for Drolta to arrive, the vampire messiah's top dog, and she enters. Inside, Mizrak gets annoyed with her, pissing Drolta off, but the head priest tells everyone to chill out because they have a common enemy, and tells her that thanks to the rich noble, his people have provided enough corpses for them to make 18 night creatures, with more being made as they speak. Suspicious of her, Mizrak tells her that the church is expecting her messiah to be the next Joan of Arc and lead them out of this unfaithful time in the country. Drolta assures him that her boss won't disappoint. She asks to see some night creatures, so Mizrak gets ordered to escort her down to the basement, not realizing that Orlox has snuck into the basement himself in order to do a little snooping. Just outside, Richter's group finally reaches the secret tunnel and heads in. Reaching this entrance, Tara opens the door, and they hear the night creature guards watching the perimeter. That's when Annette hears Edward singing and recognizes his voice, but they get spotted again. Gosh, they suck. The group fortunately reacts quickly and splits up to take on the hordes. And meanwhile, Orlox nearby spots the night creature machine in this room and sees the magic instruction manual telling him how to creatures of the night, and this gives him some ideas. Back in the main room, Richter and friends combine forces right as they run into Drolta and her crew, with Maria spotting the head priest, confirming that yeah, he's a bad guy. It makes Tara realize her man is evil as shit. Okay, this seems like an impossible task, but not for me. I would have been able to achieve 2 out of the 3 of the gang's objectives by just relying on sunlight and lessons in forge mastery and screwing over Edward's useless face. Let's take a look at their objectives. Find out who the forge master is and kill him. Save Edward and see if the head priest is working for the bad guys or not. Then decide his fate. Are you freaking kidding me? Their current plan is solely focused on one objective based on how they decided to infiltrate the church, and that's to do with Edward. Annette once again wanted to bum rush in and save Edward with no plan, classic move, and could only think of burying everybody in the church with her powers if it all went to shit. And Maria just thought to go in and kill everybody, including the priest, cause he's a dick. And all Tara, the only true adult with superpowers here, could suggest to do is to sneak into the church through a tunnel and vouch for the head priest? If I was Tara and a better adult than her, before coming up with a proper plan to meet our objectives, I would first address the elephant in this room, or in this case, the night creature, Edward. Oh yes, he's adorable. He likely wouldn't have been able to help us in terms of winning this vampire war, despite what Annette says, because if we think about it, our current team roster, everyone here either has powers, training experience, or a little bit of both, whereas Edward from the get-go didn't have much of anything except for a nice set of pipes. Really? Sure, he could swing a sword, but in reality, he joined the revolution as a man with passion and ideas, not as a man with anything useful. At best, he could handle some humans, but putting him against vampires and night creatures? That is clearly a mistake, which makes me right. And because of this, it's pointless to consider him in this plan at all. Now with that out of the way, I would then pay more attention to the identity of the Forge Master and who he could have been before even heading in there, by just using some common sense. It's noted that Forge Masters can only be humans, and the art itself takes years to master, which means that someone within this tower would have discovered who the Forge Master was, especially if they were located somewhere as highly accessible and full of people as the church. But did you know there's another much more subtle and faster way to become a Forge Master? And that is through making a deal with a demonic being. This would have been much more likely the explanation of what the head priest did, and this demonic deal to grant someone Forge Master powers also links to why Annette thought Edward was still part human. Originally, Forge Masters take years to master the art and put random souls from hell into their night creatures, whereas through the demonic deal, this uses the original soul of the corpse in order to turn them into a night creature's servant. And this could mean that Edward's original soul would still been inside of him, and that's what Annette saw, which means if I was them, I would have instead charged into the church during the last hour of night, when the vampires would have been out and about and the church would have been more empty, allowing us to sneak in and just deal with the night creatures. Being dawn also means that we would have had found the head priest sleeping and could have kidnapped him and taken him hostage. There you go, you see? 2 out of the 3 objectives, you're welcome. They waste no time, the 2 groups charge in. Hand to hand, Annette fights Drolta, but she pushes her back, allowing her to get a moment to get to Edward, while the rest cover her. Reaching her old friend, she finds out that he still has some memories of who he is. She apologizes for letting him turn into a monster and prepares to end his suffering. But Edward then starts backing away in fear, not wanting to die. Understandable. Shocking Annette that he is still part human. Nearby, Richter slays demons with Tara, but Maria gets badly cut, and Drolta tries to kill her, but the head priest quickly stops her, saying killing children wasn't the deal. Spotting Annette, she charges at her, barely giving Annette a chance to defend for her life, while Tara rushes to Maria's safety. The head priest tries to explain to them that the world is evil and he's trying to save it. Richter acts like a tough guy and prepares to continue fighting, but that's when Orlox arrives behind him and reaches out his hand. Richter's mind breaks, seeing his mother's killer, and he loses his shit and tells everyone they need to leave, leaving everyone behind as he bails, forcing the rest to escape without saving the world and without saving Edward. Orlox then greets Drolta, saying he's been waiting in town to meet the vampire messiah because she is expecting her, and she tells the head priest to go make more night creatures. Later that night, Annette finishes resting up and tells these two here that she wants to go back to save Edward, but Tara says they should wait for Richter to come back and need time to figure out their enemy. They convince Annette to do some recut, cause yeah, that went so well last time. Listening, she then spots Drolta passing through town. Following, Annette catches her, bumping into Orlox feeding in the streets, and she warns him to not feed on the wealthy in this town, since they are trying to secure peace for now. They go for a walk while Orlox asks her about the whole world domination plan. She tells him that darkness will soon cover the sun soon, and then all the vampires can stop relying on the rich elite to strike deals, telling him that everyone across Europe is pledging their allegiance to the Messiah. He finds it hard to believe one vampire could be so powerful, but she lets him in on a little secret. The Messiah is not just a vampire, but a goddess that drank the blood of Sekhmet, the Egyptian goddess of war and vengeance, daughter of Ra. It was prophesied that the time for her reign was when there would be signs of disorder, servants uprising, and war. And this is why the vampire race has decided to strike now and restore the natural order of the world, full of kings, servants, and peasants. She tells him to not worry his pretty face, and that he'll meet their ruler very soon. While nearby, Annette hears all of this. As the sun rises, the head priest pays a visit to Tara's house, begging them to talk. He checks in with Maria about her arm and reveals to them why he's working with the killers, saying that now with the revolution going on, he doesn't know what to believe in anymore. The revolutionaries are looking at religion as evil, and lots of his priest friends have now died. He now wants to make an army of night creatures, not just for the vampires, but to stop the non-believers from wreaking havoc and to keep them safe, and will tolerate the vampires for now. Tara tells him that he's not the man she once knew and wishes she never met him, but he accidentally reveals that he's Maria's dad and Tara's ex-daddy. Nearby in the town bar, after Good cry about his mother's killer, blah blah blah, not important, Richter enters this bar to chill out, but doesn't have any money. And then this creepy old man then offers to pay for his meal, and Richter thanks him. And that's when this flesh-eating vampire comes in and tells the same old man that he is dead. Richter reacts fast, but discovers the old man has taken his whip and then activates all of his badassery moves, cutting off body parts and heads in seconds. He tells Richter that the whip is heavier than he remembers it and walks out of the bar, leaving Richter shocked. Confused and demanding answers on what he just did, Richter follows him and asks who he is. This old man says that he knew Richter's mother because he is Richter's grandfather, Just Belmont. He reveals to them that he's been here in France since Richter arrived years ago and has been watching him this whole time suck. He told Tara not to tell him, but constantly gave her money to help fund Richter here. He gets mad at the old guy for hiding out all these years and not living up to the Belmont name. But Just tells him that he used to be the most powerful Belmont sorcerer, but after his wife and best friend died, he lost hope in life and lost his magical ability, and now just chills out because life is pointless. Richter tries to convince him to get off his ass, but he tells him that evil will always win, so there's no point in fighting it. Richter then breaks down crying again, with the two of them unaware that monsters are nearby, elsewhere lost without direction. Annette calls upon her ancestors and her trainer. The trainer tells her that while her traumatic past fueled her energy until now, it is not the source of her power, and she must learn how to move on mentally, to find light in the darkness, and to not give up just yet, in order to be able to fight the incoming threat. Meanwhile, at the church, the night creatures begin hearing Edward sing more and more frequently, and his voice begins to almost heal them. This demon approaches him, and they chat. Edward finds out that this demon remembers his name and convinces him that this isn't their final fate. Upstairs, Maria pays a visit to her daddy, just returning from their house. She tells him how disappointed she is in him about everything, and he tells her that he must do what he must do for God, but says that he will always protect her, as long as she doesn't stand in God's way. Just then, they hear crowds in the distance roar in excitement, noting that the vampire messiah has finally arrived. He tells Maria to quickly leave, not realizing that Drolta has seen her. Back at Richter's granddad's place, they chat about life when he goes to the bathroom. Taking too long, Richter senses something approach them. Alarmed, he takes out his whip, right as Drolta's men charge at him, forcing him to fight unprepared and under-equipped. He spots Just, now in chains near him, and soon gets disarmed and held down. down, forcing him to watch as this vampire says he will end the Belmont line right now, but also will make all of his friends suffer before they die as punishment. With no hope left and about to die, Richter's life flashes before his eyes, and seeing those he loves, something inside of him erupts, and he unleashes his inner fury and emits a beam of light, realizing that his powers have now gotten reactivated. This guy attacks him, but easily gets blasted with magic, and he dodges and kills these two with speed and precision. The final boss tries to escape, but gets caught by Just, who is now broken free. Richter then brutally blows his face off and realizes that his magic came back, and now he has a job and a family to protect. Okay, while this is all hunky-dory, what just happened proves that Richter's brains is all about his looks. Let me explain. Richter here wouldn't have had this problem and would have had his powers way back earlier if he just noticed the signs around him. It's noted that he lost his powers when his mother died. During a traumatic event such as this, a process happens in the brain called neuroplasticity, which occurs when the brain basically rewires itself in response to emotional trauma, including releasing hormones and chemicals, similar to a fight, flight, or freeze response, which causes cognitive processes such as memory alteration and a defense mechanism in order to shield the person from experiencing severe emotional distress again. And also, if we look at how Richter got his magic back, it's in a way similar to other physical activities that require the use of our central nervous system. The more we do an activity, the better the brain remembers that movement for next time. And this is what helps us improve. Producing magic in this sense is similar, as it requires the use of physical movement, concentration, and deliberate focus, all of which require the use of the central nervous system. This is why it's possible that when Richter's mother's died, his brain, due to the traumatic event, caused memory alteration as a defense mechanism, shielding him from the true pain of seeing his dead mother. But because magic was associated with his mother and his childhood, the memory of the exercise of how to perform the magic also got wiped or buried deep within his psyche. But another way that he could have gotten his powers back was when he met Annette. She told him her life story and her powers. She gained her powers only when she was in a real life and death moment, and this triggered her awakening. This likely happened as a direct survival trigger response. Richter never once talked to her about this, since he lost his powers when he went through some tough shit, and Annette gained her powers when she went through some tough shit. This means that it's obvious by working on his emotional state was the key to getting his powers back. Honestly, he's an idiot. Meanwhile, more vampires surprise attack Tara. Maria sees this and rushes to try and save her. Seeing her mother about to get killed, it gets stopped by Richter, returning back, and now a powerful sorcerer, shocking everyone here that he is at his full strength and ready for the greatest war of their lives. Heading back to their house, he apologizes to Annette for running away, but she tells him she actually missed him since they don't have many allies left. Richter promises to avenge Edward, and getting a little bit too cozy and makes him uncomfortable. Back at the noble's house, Orlox finally meets the vampire Messiah. She tells him she's heard of the revolution in the New World and plans to start an empire over there once she takes over Europe, and he will lead her to America, making Orlox realize that his new master might be just a little bit too crazy. The vampire nobles then head to meet with the head priest and check up on their night creatures, and he tells them that before they can continue their partnership, she needs him to probe his loyalty to her and must sacrifice something he loves to show he's submitting to her. The head priest tells her that nothing is more important to him than God, but she knows he's lying and reveals that he must sacrifice Maria. Mizrak tells her that the head priest has no daughter till he looks at his shocked face. The vampire Messiah tells them that men are always led by their onagiris, and they have eyes everywhere in this town. Back at Tara's spot, they work on figuring out how the head priest is turning people into night creatures, and that's when Orlox appears and says they're using a machine while he drops a book onto the table. The group gets their weapons ready and head out to catch him, while Tara notices the book. Outside, they split up and Richter runs into them, but this time he isn't a scared little boy anymore and is ready to fight him. Orlox, though, keeps dodging his attacks and refuses to fight him, saying he must be the one to destroy the machine producing the night creatures. Richter gets mad and tells him to do it instead, but Orlox says that only a human can destroy the machine, and only a human can create night creatures. And this is why the vampires are using the church. He tells him to read the book he dropped and to save the world before it's too late, and leaves. Heading back to their house, Tara says Orlox was telling the truth, and this book is a guide on how to use the machine. Tara tells him that she'll work on decoding the ancient text to figure out how to use it and destroy the night creature machine. While she does this, Maria sneaks off into the church to meet with her father. She tries to warn him that they will soon attack this church and destroy it in order to save the world, and he should get out of here in case he gets hurt. The head priest tells her he can't leave because he needs to help fix the world. And sometimes the only way to fight evil is with evil itself. He thanks Maria for caring for him, and they both smile, and that's when he tells her that her sacrifice for the cause will send her soul to heaven, striking horror in her eyes as she gets captured, while Mizrak sees this. A little later, back at Terra's house, she finally decodes the book and tells the gang that they can't destroy the machine because it's made of pure magic. They can, however, send it back to where it came by opening a portal straight to hell and sending it back themselves. And that's when Mizrak busts in the door and tells them that the church will sacrifice Maria to the vampire messiah. Running towards the church, they notice the sun get blacked out by darkness in the sky, blocking out the sun, and the vampire army finally escapes into the sky and the world begins to turn evil. While Richter's group sees the horrors in the flesh, naive Terra thinks the moon is just doing moon things. Right. But the others think that the goddess Sekhmet has finally arrived. This group then runs into Mizrak's men, drawing out their swords to stop them. Richter quickly draws up a new game plan. Terra and Annette will stop the Forge Master machine while he goes to save Maria. The church knights surround them, and Mizrak begs them to join their side, but they say no, forcing him to unleash his inner stud. Elsewhere, the vampire messiah absorbs the power of the eclipse and finally turns into Sekhmet, the goddess of war, mistress of dread, lady of slaughter, she who mauls. She heads to the church to complete the ritual with Maria's sacrifice, while Orlok's here decides to help Richter's group. At the church, the head priest prepares Maria for sacrifice just as Richter and Terra blast in. Incoming night creatures try to stop them from reaching Maria. Terra tries to put some sense into the head priest, saying that the monster he's helping aren't serving God. Meanwhile, Richter ignites some fire punches and starts blasting these demons, saving Terra and freeing Maria. Annette then heads off to locate the Forge Master machine, while Terra begins working on summoning a portal to hell for her. Head priest tells Richter that he should have taken the girls and ran off because now it's too late. Richter acts cocky just as the doors open up behind them. Drolat enters with the army, ready to brutally kill them. Everyone bumps heads and gets dirty, whipping up sick moves, magic, and sexiness. While Terra continues to work on the spell, Drolta almost kills Maria, but Richter saves her with his Morning Star. Orlok then appears to help Richter's team as they continue to push. But that's when, down in the basement, Annette takes on this night creature, but then realizes that these other two are trying to help her. Approaching Edward, she tries to break him out, but he tells her to leave because his work here isn't done, revealing to her that his sweet pipes have touched souls down here. She needs to go and focus on stopping the vampire messiah. Back upstairs, Richter's group puts up a good fight just as Sekhmet enters with a bang. Casually walking in, all her minions fall behind her, and she easily gets rid of Richter and heads straight for Maria. Down below, Annette finally reaches the Forge Master machine and sees the portal into hell that Terra opened up for her. Using her powers, she tries to forcibly remove the machine, but quickly finds out that she isn't strong enough. Just as hell's portal quickly starts to vanish, the whole team quickly realizes that their plans are failing. Alright, well, it looks like this god is undefeatable. This vampire messiah is just a vampire who drank the blood of the god Sekhmet, which is an actual god rooted in history and religion. But if this is the case, it makes no sense that Richter and gang didn't do anything with this information. They found this information out days beforehand. If I was them, I wouldn't have let my big fat Belmont ego get in the way of actually taking the time to dive deeper into our enemy. While specific vampires, such as her and Drolta, would be hard to find any relevant info related to them specifically. Sekhmet, however, was a very famous god and one they could have looked into. Sekhmet was a warrior goddess that her father, Ra, sent to Earth to destroy humans who threatened his rule down here. However, after wiping out the people against Ra, Sekhmet didn't stop her bloodlust and kept on killing and drinking the blood of humans and almost destroyed humanity. In order to stop her, Ra and the other gods came up with a plan that involved emptying a lake and filling it with beer dyed with red ochre, so it looked like blood. Seeing the lake full of blood, Sekhmet drank it all and soon became drunk, allowing her to return peacefully to Ra himself. By knowing this, I could have replicated the same maneuver by using Terra and possibly Annette's magic to create a big lake full of blood and lure the vampire messiah to nosedive headfirst like a moth to a flame, allowing her to become more blitzed than Dom on a Saturday night with the boys in Bangkok. He really does get sloshed, I'm not kidding. The balls of their home. About to lose it all, Mizrak charges at Sekhmet, but Orlok teleports him to safety, hearing Edward's singing from below, and tells Drolta to make him stop. Out of moves, Terra begs baby daddy to turn his night creatures on her, but Sekhmet tells them that she doesn't want to kill Maria, but wants to do something better than death, and turn her into one of them. Richter finally wakes back up and tries to attack but fails again, and out of moves, Terra offers herself to Sekhmet instead of Maria, but Sekhmet tells her that it must be someone the priest loves. The head priest tells her he still loves her. Making the new deal, Maria tries to stop her mother, but Sekhmet knocks her back into Richter's arms, and him and the rest of the group are forced to escape, while the head priest is forced to watch the woman he loves turn into the thing he hates. Outside of town, Orlok drops Mizrak to safety, telling him that he he can't stop her, and he doesn't want him to die. Pissed off, Mizrak tells Orlox he wouldn't understand because he lost his soul centuries ago, leaving Orlox crying while he heads back into town. Running into Richter's group, he gets updated that they all failed, and that's when they spot Drolta and her minions nearing them, and they realize they'll never let them go. Preparing for another battle, Drolta approaches and suddenly gets stabbed by a piercing white blade from the man himself. Son of Dracula, Alucard. Drolat dies in a brutal death, while Alucard here scares away other vampire minions. He reveals to Richter that he knows who he is and tells them that they are on the brink of defeat, but it's a good thing that he's now here to help them out. Thank you, Scentbird, for sponsoring today's video. Now be sure to click the link in the description down below in order to use my code for a discount.